Over 2,000 years ago, an ancient Babylonian king had a dream so powerful, it shattered an empire and altered the course of history. This isn't a myth. This was Nabonidus, the last king of Babylon, who claimed that the moon god Sin appeared to him in a vision. What he did next shocked the ancient world. He abandoned the capital. He rewrote the religious order. He vanished into the desert for 10 years, leaving his son to rule in his place. To many, he lost his mind. To the priests, he betrayed the gods. But what if Nabonidus wasn't wrong? What if his dream held a truth the world wasn't ready for? Hello and welcome back, my Noetic mystics. In this video, we're unraveling the story of a king whose dream defied empires, and what that means for dreamers like you and me. Be sure to like, subscribe, and tap the bell, so you never miss a journey into the mystical unknown. And if you feel called to support this work and dive even deeper, check out the links below for dream interpretations, spiritual tools, and more ways to connect. In the twilight years of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, a strange king rose to power, a man both revered and reviled. His name was Nabonidus, the last ruler of Babylon before its collapse. But what set Nabonidus apart wasn't just his politics or his lineage. It was his unwavering devotion to a dream that led him to abandon his capital, rewrite the religious order, and vanish into the desert for a decade. Nabonidus wasn't born into power like the great kings of old. He rose through priestly and scholarly ranks, a man shaped by omens, ancient texts, and a deep fixation with the moon god Sin, a deity that had long faded from center stage in the Babylonian pantheon. Babylon, by tradition, worshipped Marduk, a solar, kingly god of order and civilization. To revere another god over Marduk wasn't just heresy, it was a cosmic rebellion. And yet, Nabonidus did exactly that. The heart of this mystery lies within the Nabonidus cylinder, a clay tablet inscribed with a message from the king himself. In it, Nabonidus claims he was called in a dream. The moon god Sin came to him, urging him to rebuild the forgotten temples of Haran, a sacred city linked to ancient moon worship. This wasn't a suggestion. It was a divine mission, one Nabonidus took as absolute truth. But this obedience came at a cost. Rather than ruling from Babylon, Nabonidus left the empire behind and journeyed to the far-off deserts of Arabia to a city called Tema. For 10 years he ruled in absence, entrusting the throne to his son Belshazzar. Yes, the same prince in the book of Daniel from the Bible, who would later see the fateful writing on the wall. While Nabonidus prayed to Sin and rebuilt ruined temples, Babylon was unraveling. The priesthood of Marduk turned against him. The festivals, especially the New Year's rites that upheld the cosmic order, could not be performed properly in his absence. The balance between the divine and the human, between heaven and earth, was broken. Meanwhile, Cyrus the Great of Persia was rising. His conquest of Mesopotamia was swift, and some say even welcomed by the Babylonian elite who had grown tired of Nabonidus's madness. When Cyrus entered Babylon, it was without resistance. Nabonidus returned too late. His empire had already fallen. So we're left with a haunting truth. An empire fell, not by sword or plague, but by the faith of a single man, in a dream he could not ignore. To truly understand the weight of Nabonidus's rebellion, we need to step back and look at the sacred order he disrupted. Babylon wasn't just a city, it was the navel of the world, the axis where heaven met earth. At the center of this cosmic alignment stood the god Marduk, a solar deity of supreme authority. According to Babylonian myth, Marduk had slain the primordial chaos goddess Tiamat, bringing order to the cosmos. In return, the other gods crowned him king of the heavens. His temple, the mighty Esagila, was not just a monument, It was a conduit through which divine power flowed into the kingdom. And overseeing this sacred temple were the priests and priestesses of Marduk, perhaps the most powerful political force in Babylon. These weren't mere religious functionaries. They were revered as cosmic engineers, keepers of time, celestial calendars, rituals, and the sacred texts that held the fabric of their perceived reality together. The high priest determined when the gods were pleased, when crops would grow, and when kings could rule. Even the New Year festival, Akitu, was orchestrated by them. Without it, the king could not be ritually affirmed. Without it, order itself was said to unravel. So when Nabonidus declared his allegiance not to Marduk, but to the moon god Sin, and then physically left Babylon to serve that god in foreign lands, it wasn't just religious betrayal. It was perceived as cosmic treason. Sin, or Nana in Sumerian, was one of the oldest gods in Mesopotamian lore. A mysterious and luminous deity, Sin ruled the night sky and was associated with dreams, intuition, hidden knowledge, and the rhythms of time. Once revered in ancient Sumer, his cult had largely faded by the time of Nabonidus, displaced by the rise of more politically dominant deities like Marduk. Yet Nabonidus resurrected this old god, claiming that Sin alone had the power to restore divine favor. He didn't just honor Sin in private, he poured state resources into rebuilding his temples at Haran and Ur, elevated his image above all others, and even referred to him as the king of the gods. For the priesthood of Babylon, this was intolerable. Without the king's presence in the Esagila, the rituals to renew Marduk's covenant could not be performed. The Akitu festival was disrupted for years, and with it, the carefully maintained harmony between the heavens and the earthly realm began to fray. Behind closed temple doors, the priesthood likely plotted. Many began aligning with Cyrus of Persia, who curiously presented himself as a champion of Marduk. When Cyrus entered Babylon, his scribes even claimed that Marduk chose Cyrus to replace the previous Babylonian king because Nabonidus was an impious ruler who neglected the worship of Marduk. It was a theological coup masked as political liberation. And so, Nabonidus, once divinely chosen by a dream, was now branded a heretic. His devotion to Sin had cast him out of alignment with the powers of his own people. Though self-imposed, his withdrawal from Babylon was more than physical. It was a cosmic severance. A rift had opened between him and the very kingdom he was meant to lead. Was he mad? Was he a mystic? Or was he simply a man who followed the moon when everyone else demanded the sun? Now let's take a closer look at Nabonidus's prophetic dream. It is perhaps his most perplexing legacy. According to ancient sources, Nabonidus was deeply moved, perhaps even haunted, by a powerful vision he claimed came directly from the gods. In it, he was told to restore the worship of the moon, god Sin, above all others. Some accounts suggest this wasn't just a passing dream, but a divine command, and Nabonidus took it seriously. So seriously that he restructured the religious hierarchy of Babylon. He elevated Sin to a central, almost exclusive role, and in doing so, disrupted centuries of tradition that had long upheld the supreme cult of Marduk. This raises a difficult question. Was Nabonidus's dream prophetic or misguided? From one angle, it appears tragic. He trusted a vision, a divine voice only he heard, and as a result, he alienated his priests, destabilized his empire, and ultimately left Babylon vulnerable to Persian conquest. The priesthood, who saw themselves as the earthly custodians of cosmic balance, viewed his actions as heretical, even dangerous, by sidelining Marduk and his powerful temple complex. Esagila, Nabonidus wasn't just playing politics. He was challenging the metaphysical order of the universe, the very harmony between heaven and earth, and that may have been his true crime. Not treason against the people, but treason against the gods. But let's take a step deeper. What if the real issue wasn't the dream itself, but how he interpreted it? Dreams have always been sacred in the ancient world, gateways to divine realms, oracles of fate, and mirrors of the unseen. But there's a danger in taking them too literally. A dream, especially one cloaked in symbolic language, often requires discernment, patience, and balance. To follow it blindly, to impose it upon a world not ready to receive it, can collapse the very order it was meant to inspire. This is where Nabonidus may have faltered. He received a mystical message, but without the balance of the feminine, without the intuition, grounding, and integrative wisdom long held by the priestesses and oracles of his tradition. He acted through masculine force alone. Structure, imposition, and decree. In Babylon, masculine and feminine weren't just genders. They were cosmic principles. Marduk represented power, judgment, and kingship. But his harmony depended on the divine feminine. Ishtar's fertility. Ereshkigal's shadow wisdom. Tiamat's primordial chaos subdued but never erased. When Nabonidus raised sin to supremacy and ignored these polarities, he didn't just defy tradition, he upset the sacred balance of masculine and feminine energies upon which Babylon's entire cosmology was built. And perhaps that's the real message for us today. We live in a time where dreams, personal and collective, are rising again. People feel called toward change, toward meaning, toward inner purpose. But we must be careful. Are we forcing our dreams into rigid structures? Are we interpreting mystical insight through the lens of control and fear? Or are we allowing the deeper feminine wisdom within us to help guide, refine, and translate what these visions truly mean? Because the truth is, a dream can spark revolutions or ruin kingdoms. The difference lies not in the dream itself, but in how we carry it. And here, we must pause to consider something deeper, the soul of Babylon itself. Babylon was not just an empire of bricks and bronze. It was a solar empire. Its power was rooted in the sun's archetype: clarity, logic, and law. It was a civilization built on order, structure, and the upward drive of masculine energy. Not male or female as we think biologically, but as archetypes. The masculine archetype is the force that builds temples, organizes calendars, writes laws, and defines boundaries. It thrives in direction, certainty, and projection. It reaches for the sky. The feminine archetype, on the other hand, is the force of inwardness, intuition, mystery, and cyclical flow. It governs dreams, emotions, shadow work, the unseen, and the sacred art of allowing. Where the masculine acts, the feminine listens. Where the masculine defines, the feminine dissolves. Both are essential. And when they're in harmony, they form the sacred dance of creation, a cosmic polarity found in every myth, every temple, every psyche. But when they fall out of balance, civilizations fracture. Many people today unconsciously lean heavily into one energy. Some live constantly in their masculine, chasing goals, dominating schedules, clinging to control, and measuring worth through productivity. Others drift too deeply into the feminine, lost in emotional tides, hesitating, dreaming endlessly without anchoring their visions in action. Neither is wrong, but when we lose balance, we begin to mirror the very fate of Babylon. Though sin was mythologically male, the moon itself has long represented the feminine principle, the realm of dreams, cycles, and the inner world. Nabonidus was a man born into a solar kingdom, shaped by the ideals of kingship, law, and clarity. Yet he followed a lunar vision, a feminine dream, and tried to impose it using masculine methods, edicts, temples, force. The result? Disintegration, confusion, and collapse. This is what happens on a societal level too. When an empire worships order but fears mystery, values reason but suppresses emotion, exalts the sun and forgets the moon, it begins to corrode from within. The institutions harden. The people disconnect. The dreamers are mocked, or worse, silenced. Babylon's decline was not merely political, it was spiritual. A solar empire tried to absorb a lunar vision without making space for feminine wisdom. It tried to carry the moon in a chariot for the sun. And today, in our modern world, we face the same tension. We live in a society that glorifies achievement, metrics, visibility, and control, but often dismisses the intuitive, the emotional, the sacred, and the unseen. The dreamers are still misunderstood. The mystics are still ridiculed, and yet, without them, we lose the very soul of our humanity. So what would balance look like now? It looks like someone who can work hard and stay focused, but also knows when to rest without guilt. It's being able to make decisions using logic, while still listening to your gut instinct. It means valuing productivity, but not letting it define your worth. It's allowing yourself to feel your emotions, instead of suppressing them, but not letting those emotions control your life. In relationships, it's communicating openly and honestly, but also being willing to hold space for silence and vulnerability. In leadership, it's about taking action when needed, but also being willing to pause, reflect, and listen. A balanced person knows how to plan, build, and organize, but also how to flow, adapt, and trust. In the eyes of his people, Nabonidus may have looked like a traitor to tradition. He abandoned Babylon's core identity, its gods, its sacred calendar, and its deeply woven priesthood structure. But what if he wasn't running from Babylon, but trying to lead it towards something new? What if Nabonidus saw the cracks in an empire built on only one kind of power, solar, masculine, rational, and tried to bring back the other half that had long been silenced? For thousands of years, the feminine archetype, symbolized by the moon, by intuition, by dreams, had been relegated to the shadows. And while Nabonidus's method may have lacked clarity or diplomacy, his intent may have held wisdom. Perhaps his dream wasn't a literal prophecy. Perhaps it was an inner call to rebalance what had become distorted, a cosmic nudge that the empire's rigid systems could no longer sustain themselves on hierarchy and conquest alone. He wasn't just elevating Sin, the moon god. He was making a statement that the unseen, the intuitive, and the cyclical had just as much place in leadership and society as the visible, structured, and linear. In modern times, this looks like integrating the feminine back into our personal and collective lives, not just as a gender role, but as a quality of being. We live in a world that still leans heavily into productivity, dominance, and fast action, and we often celebrate leaders who are decisive and bold, but rarely those who are inward, compassionate, and patient. Nabonidus tried to lead with a vision born from a dream. He stepped away from power, not to escape it, but to reimagine it. And in doing so, he challenged one of the most advanced civilizations of the time to rethink what divine order really meant. Unfortunately, Babylon wasn't ready. And history, as it often does, branded the dreamer as a failure. But maybe he wasn't a failure at all. Maybe Nabonidus was a mirror held up to humanity, a reminder that without balance, even the most glorious empires will collapse under the weight of their own shadow. Before we close, I want to take a moment to speak directly to you, not as a historian, but as a dream guide. If there's one thing Nabonidus teaches us, it's this. Dreams can be powerful. They can stir the soul, reveal hidden truths, and even challenge entire belief systems. But they can also be misunderstood. Taken too literally, a dream can lead us into obsession, fear, or misguided action. Dreams are not always meant to be prophecies. They're not instructions written in stone. They're symbolic, emotional landscapes shaped by memory, trauma, intuition, and sometimes even the collective unconscious. In modern spiritual circles, I've seen people fall too far into their dreams. interpreting every image as an omen or sign. When we lean only into intuition without grounding ourselves in reflection and discernment, we risk falling into confusion, or worse, spiritual psychosis. So then, what really is a dream? A dream is a mirror. It reflects your inner world, your hidden beliefs, your unresolved emotions. It speaks in the language of metaphor and energy. And while some symbols may hold universal meaning, many are deeply personal. What a snake means to one person could be entirely different to another. That's why dream work is so delicate and so powerful when done right. While you may already have a sense of what your dreams mean, working with someone trained to interpret deeper layers can reveal insights you never considered. Sometimes, the dream you thought was about fear is actually a hidden message of growth. Sometimes what looks like an ending is your soul working its way toward inner transformation. If you're navigating recurring dreams, confusing symbols, or just want to understand yourself better through the language of dreams, I offer personal dream work services tailored to your spiritual path. This isn't about quick answers, it's about soul alignment. Together we can unravel the threads and bring light to the hidden messages your subconscious is trying to share. You can learn more or purchase a dream interpretation directly through my website. Links will be down in the description below. So what do we make of Nabonidus now? A heretic king? A madman lost in his dreams? Or perhaps a cautionary tale? A mirror of what happens when we chase divine visions without grounding, when we mistake symbols for certainties, or when we silence one part of ourselves in service to another. His story may seem distant, wrapped in the dust of ancient stone, but it's not so different from the choices we each face now. Every one of us is the ruler of an inner kingdom. And like Babylon, our empires rise or fall based on what we worship: power or purpose, ego or insight, logic or intuition. The dream of Nabonidus was real, not just because it changed the course of history, but because it revealed a truth inside him. And whether it was misguided or divine, it gave him the courage to act in alignment with that truth, no matter the cost. The same is true for you. You don't need a throne to walk in sacred balance. You don't need a temple to hear your soul. You only need the willingness to look inward, and the humility to not always know what you're looking at. So may you dream bravely, but interpret wisely. May you rule your inner world, not with dominance, but with discernment. And may you always remember that true vision doesn't come from seeing the future clearly, but from understanding the present with clarity. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this content, please like and subscribe so you don't miss more deep dives into the realm of dreams and spirituality. I also offer personalized dream interpretation services that go beyond surface level analysis on my website, noeticmystic.com. Together, we'll uncover the spiritual guidance hidden in your dreams and help you align with the deeper wisdom trying to reach you. Links will be down in the description. Until next time, my Noetic mystics, may your dreams illuminate the path ahead.